Okay, here we are at Saturday Morning Show. We're going to be talking about resetting the clock. So, what I mean about this is about how to relaunch your home for the new year selling success. This is every single time, the start of every single year brings a new energy into the property market. So, if you've had no luck selling your home in 2023, then take comfort that hope is still on the horizon itself. I mean, as the nights, Richard, this is it. As the nights get lighter and the market warms up, buyers and sellers start thinking about moving in time for summer. Yes, you will have to do something now if you want to move in time for summer. And our diaries fills again with valuations and viewings. We've got about 20 properties coming on for
Yeah,
sale. That's mental. It's like that's
it
a
is.
huge amount of properties.
It is, and we do kind of as we've had a really successful and busy 11, I mean the first 11 days of the year we looked at in the midweek show, Jim, and we looked at the figures and the stats for that and just how much a momentous start to the year. And like you say, the nights are getting lighter and we're starting to, obviously the market starts to warm up, and as you say, we've got what, 20 properties due to come onto the market.
Yeah, there's quite a lot. It's people are now. Some people are actually now realising that now is the time to get your property on the market. Don't wait for the spring where everybody else floods their houses onto the market at the same time. Excuse the pun. Obviously, this time of year there's a bit of floods. No pun intended. I'm here all week. Try the fish. But the key here is you need to probably go sooner rather than later, especially if you're looking to move in summertime. You've
Yeah.
got no chance of probably getting in spring. I actually had one of our clients. I just signed her up yesterday, and she said to me, "Right, I've got my moving van booked for the end of March." All right, you found rented accommodation. She went, "No, no, because by the time you sell and stuff like that, I'll be ready. We'll be ready to move probably at March." And I thought, "I've not got your house in the market yet. We're at the end. we're at
She
the
got
end
a
of
solicitor in
we're at the
place.
end of January." It's like we've only got 2 months. It takes about 3 months for a conveyancer, a legal solicitor, to get the conveyancing through. More than likely, it's not that quick. And on average, just now selling in Fife, it's about 2 months because there's about 1,000 properties on the market. There's 500 every single month that gets sold, so you've got 2 months worth of stock there. So on average, it's taking 2 months to sell a house in Fife, according to the facts. Remember, it's according to the facts.
Yeah.
It's not someone else's opinion. This is just fact and data and analysis. So it's a buzzing time around this time of year. So if you want a second shot at selling your house to success, you're probably going to have a few burning questions. I think these burning questions are going to be: is it a good idea to take a break from a break time from the market itself right now? What's the reason? Probably is you didn't sell before, and what's your competition now? Can you do anything to improve your presentation and your chances of sale? Probably the other one is the most controversial one, especially for us as well, because some of our, it doesn't all happen. It's all no roses and sweetness for some of our customers as well. Very few, but some of our customers as well doesn't go according to their plans, even though we've told them before we start the journey it's not going to be that quick, and this is the reason why. So you should just batter down, bolt yourself down for the long run. And if it happens like you want it to happen, then great, great,
Yeah.
brilliant, good on you. But if it doesn't, then you're prepared for it. So the question I would say is, this is the most controversial: should you stick with your original agent, or is it actually time for a change? So we will cover that later on in
Yeah.
the show. The final one for me is probably: how can you make your home look like a brand new listing? Now that takes a lot of expertise and skill
It
to do
does.
that. You can take an existing estate agent could take your home right now and make it look like a brand new listing. And we're going to talk about that right at the end, just to finish off. And as with all of life's big questions, these are best answered with a cup of tea or your favourite brew. I didn't imagine anybody will be drinking this unless you've got hair of the dog.
Mine's is just coffee. Yeah.
So pop the kettle on, take a seat, and get ready to relaunch your home and make your move. Make your move this year.
Yeah. Do
There's
you
no
know?
doubt about that. We've done that. We've done that with Craighead Farmhouse actually. We told them that strategy. They took a wee while to get that into their head and understand what we were telling them. But they realigned it. They got the relaunch, and we've got an offer and it's sold
Yeah.
within about a week or 2 weeks after it being in the market for maybe about 3 months, 4 months, and it not going according to plan like they expected.
Hmm.
They thought it was going to fly off the shelf because we sold their one downstairs before and they moved upstairs, and we sold that one and I got an offer and it was sold on social media purely on my video walkthrough and my drone footage I had done. The person never even walked in the door till the day they got the keys, and they had that same expectation that this was going to happen for their one upstairs. But it didn't happen like that, and I did pre-warn them it wasn't going to happen like that. But maybe you know what it is. People just want to hear what they want to hear sometimes, and they don't really want to hear what the current circumstances are. So
Yeah.
this is why we do so much of this content, Richard, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it is really important, and you're right, Jim. We've got a few good examples, like the one you just referred to. And also, I think Blackety Side is a good example of one that we had to really look again at
Wow,
how, yeah,
that
and
was
an amazing result eventually. But I
that
mean,
was
admittedly, it
amazing.
was that,
How
yeah,
could you relaunch a property at the price point of 595 and then push it back up to 685?
yeah,
How could you add that value back on? And in the buyer's mind, how is that even entirely possible to do that in this current market? But
yeah,
it was possible with the strategies that we use.
yeah, and admittedly, obviously, it was at that higher end of the price point. So it was an expectation, and obviously they were aware that it's not going to fly off the market
Well,
quickly.
who
But there was
gets
a lot of there
700?
was a
Who
lot
gets
of
700,000? Who gets 700,000 in Levenmouth?
yeah, I know.
Where
And
is
there
there
was
a
also
£700,000 property in Levenmouth?
yeah, there was a lot of objection handling there as well because a lot of there was quite a lot of people viewed that, and interestingly enough, a lot of the objection was the polytunnels, which I thought was strange. Do you know, a lot of people were put off with that, but anyway, a good result in the end. But it's like you say, it all come down to relaunching.
Yeah, definitely. And so I think the first question is, is it time to actually take a step back from the market? What's your thoughts from this, Richard?
Now, that's an interesting one, and people might say, "Oh, hold on a minute," but you're advising me to step away from the market, and but maybe taking a break for a couple of weeks can give you enough time to kind of recharge your batteries, formulate a new plan, and make any changes for a fresh new start. If you're looking to obviously, if you're needing to relaunch or looking to try and sell the property for a second time, if the
I
first
would
time was.
always say take advice from your estate agent first before
Mhm.
you decide that. Remember, your estate agent is the professional. They know exactly what the market's doing right now. They know what's going on. They understand the dynamics and analytics behind your property and what's happening in the background. So if they're getting a huge amount of traction still, taking a break from the market is not going to make a fundamental difference. There is other strategies to do in order to attract the audience that's actually still there to hit your property and actually respond. Because remember,
Yeah,
this isn't about selling your property online. This isn't about selling your property before anyone's got in the door. This is about a fishing. That's it, really. It's just about this is fishing. This is us fishing for buyers. And the great thing is, if you can use the right bait, which is a great digital marketing strategy,
yeah.
you could reel a lot more in quality leads in. I would say quality buyers.
Yeah, and it's all about capturing people at that right time in the initial stages. And homes that are new to the market always generate the most interest from buyers who do search online, and a lot of things are coming through to them through automatic alerts for the property portals and things. And then obviously in those initial couple of weeks, the agents are making calls and things as well. So a lot of activity is happening in those initial stages. Um, when a property's been available for several months, it becomes less likely that it's going to sell. It either fades kind of into the background, it stands out as kind of like, oh, that's been on for a long time, it's kind of going stale. Do you know? So you need to be careful and have the proper strategy in place for launching that property and
Yeah.
having that and having these leads and things picked up correctly in the first initial weeks of marketing.
I think we still have to bear in mind, though, that we talk about does the property go stale, and a lot of people actually think that, don't they? But the
Mhm.
reality is, there's 20 people make a decision every single day in Fife to
Yeah.
buy and sell a property. Well, there's 20 people that make a decision to sell. There's 17 people that make a decision to buy. And
Mhm.
the natural difference is the deceased estates and people leaving the area is the difference between the three extra every single week, every single day. So that's the fundamental difference. People make a decision to buy a property, 17 people every single day. So if you've been in the market for 2 or 3 months, then that's quite normal at this point in time for this time of year, and especially for this current market. We're still in a seller's market, and the reason that we can tell we're still in a seller's market, because the analytics actually say that there's 46% of the properties actually sold in total are on the market right now. And 46%, according to the house builders as well, is currently still a seller's market. When it drops below to 40% sold, then it goes into a balanced market. When it goes down to about 35% and below sold, then it's into a buyer's market. And that's clearly because there's a lot more properties sitting on the market still than there is actually physically sold. Hence the reason that's why it becomes a buyer's market, because people are more motivated to actually get their house sold, because they're competing against a lot more people for less buyers in the market. So hopefully everybody understands that. I did do a show, and it is actually sponsored, so you will start to see it coming through on people's feeds, in terms of, is this a buyer, a seller or buyer's market right now at the beginning of the year, and it's actually quite interesting. It's for me, analytics floats my boat. So so I would say, maybe you think your property goes stale, but sometimes you have to have faith in your estate agent as the fact that they're doing the right thing for you. That's the key here. What's other things we have to think about then, Richard?
Yeah, I mean, well, like we're saying about taking a break, and sometimes maybe stepping away for a short break can maybe create that time, let the market move on slightly, and then for new buyers to come along, like you say, there's 20 people make that decision in Fife every day, and kind of to reset your home. Now we could maybe say, obviously, like, oh, I'll have a shiny new listing on Rightmove and things, but any agent could do that. I mean, obviously, it will have that, but I think there's a lot more involved in just taking it down and putting it back on the websites again. Do you know, there's a lot more in the background in terms of, like you say, like a proper relaunch of your property. Yeah. But having that wee pause is sometimes, it's really valuable to maybe just pause for thought, have a sit down with your agent, have a talk about what you're going to do and a strategy moving forward. And having that space to think is often that little magic ingredient that produces the best ideas between yourself and your agent to move forward.
So here's how the websites respond to you taking your house off the market and putting it back on 2 weeks later.
Yeah.
Nothing. They don't put it as a shiny new listing at all. No, it doesn't appear in anybody's feeds, anything like that. So if you're tuning in or you're watching right now or later on, the websites don't acknowledge it as a new listing. You have to have a connection with your local agent, the people that actually look after you, Rightmove or Zoopla, to actually tell them to go and do that and separate it as a new listing. And that's because it's the same agent. It's the same agent. They know what they're doing, and it used to be a real it used to be a trick that they used to use all the time to do that. So there's other ways to do it, and I'm not going to discuss it on here. You can come to us individually if you're wanting to, if you're thinking about a different strategy about what you want to do. We're more than happy to tell you that. And because obviously some of this information is taking us years and years to acquire, and to give that out freely to other agents it could be tuning in is not something that I would want to do, because it does take a lot of expertise and time and effort to acquire and understand that system it operates. And that's where some of the uniqueness comes out in terms of what we do and how our system operates. So it won't make a jot of difference if you take your house off the market for a couple of weeks with a current agent and put it back on with the same agent again. It still sits in the background.
As we know as agents, Rightmove still have that.
The key here is there's different methods and techniques that you can apply to your current listing to make it look like a new listing. But if you change as well, this is looking at your property through a different lens. If you changed another agent, and we'll talk about that later on, and the implications of that and the benefits of that, but also the downfalls of that. There's a downside to changing agents, more than likely, but we can talk about that later on. So you're right, Richard.
Yeah, it's not a one size fits all. So, like, obviously, like you said, Jim, if your agent and you are not working well together, then it probably is the right decision. If you are feeling that your sales not moving forward as you expected, have the conversation first. Don't just think, oh, I'm getting rid of this agent, because you might be able to then discuss things and come to that, obviously, realization, this is what we need to do next. Because moving agent is a big decision. But then I think one of the things, if you're having a conversation with your agent, is to really review the previous feedback and the current competition and things. So, I mean, talk a bit about that, Wes, Jim.
Feedback's probably everything. The one thing I learned from one of the top agents in Scotland when I first started in estate agents, because that's that was the person that trained me, Gordon Jackson. So he was one of the top estate agents in the whole of Scotland. and he knew what he was doing. So the one thing that Gordon actually taught me was when somebody changes agents, it's actually to find out all the information about the feedback and what the current competition is round about it, so you can understand exactly what the problems were with the property before. The classic example is if you're taking it over and you just do exactly the same thing, why would you have a different response? It wouldn't make any difference at all. You'd get exactly the same response. This goes back to the old scenario. It's like, what is the height of ignorance? It's continuing to do the same thing every single time, but expecting a different result. It's almost impossible. It's like you if you do something systematically in a row, unless there's some other thing affecting it, and if nothing changes, then it will just come out with the same response. So you can't continue to do the same strategy all the time. You have to have an agent with a dynamic strategy in order to do that. And one of the things is reviewing your previous feedback. This is why it's important as well. We continuously review the feedback, and we continuously try to get feedback. This is why we are up for doing the viewings ourselves a lot, because getting feedback after the buyer has left and getting in touch with them the day later, they don't want to speak to you anymore. If they're not interested, they don't want to tell you anything now. And the primary reason for that is because they got what they wanted. They wanted a viewing of your property. And now they've got the viewing of the property. There's no compelling reason for them to come back to you unless they're going to offer.
Unless they're going to offer.
So they all lead busy lives. So expecting them to actually do that's, probably bordering on naive for an agent. So this is why it's important for the agent to do the viewings more than likely all the time, or get immediate feedback when they're more or less prime still. And the classic example is, before anybody walks out the door after I've done a viewing, I say, "So what's your thoughts?" And I'll just pause and stand there and just go quiet and
get
see what they say.
that initial reaction to what their reaction to the property.
You have to. And you just let the room breathe. You let them talk, and then they start to talk about everything, even though you feel uncomfortable because you're not talking, and there's a what we call an awkward silence. Just stay silent. Just stay silent and see what they say, because they will break rank straight away before you if you hold on at some point in time. Although I've seen somebody last up to 30 minutes just going silent.
Really?
It was only, I've not seen it. I read it in a book. A book years ago. I was doing it. It was talking about interview technique, and the boy he was interviewing knew what that was, what he was doing. So they both stayed silent for 30 minutes, and they went, obviously read the same book. Just sat in the chair and said nothing.
That's interesting.
But the key is, arrange a time to speak with your agent, perhaps in person or over a coffee. Review the feedback from every viewing. Encourage total frankness to be sure of an accurate picture. Often, some agents just don't want to give you the truth.
Gloss it over.
Again, it takes me back to Strathallan Drive, was it, in Kirkcaldy, where I walked in and immediately the person says, "Just be honest with me." And I says, "Your house stinks of dog." It's like, no wonder. I wouldn't touch it either. It's literally, I felt I had to have a shower by the time I walked out the door and wash all my clothes.
I mean, I've got a dog, and I know that you need to get rid of that dog.
It was completely, they had about 3 or 4 dogs, and it was completely impregnated in everything, and the furniture and the paintwork and the curtains and the carpets and everything. That says, that's why your house isn't selling. Your house is brilliant. It's got a huge amount of space. It's in one of the best catchment areas for the school that people want here, which is a desirable school. So there's no reason why anybody wouldn't want this. And the price point's exactly where it should be. And the only thing I could see is that they spent the whole weekend washing it down top to bottom, cleaned everything, cleared everything, got rid of all the dog. It was sold 1 week later after me taking it on. And it was sitting on the market with other agent for over a year with the same price.
Because they've not wanted to tell them your house stinks.
Just didn't want to tell them, because that's how they got the listing, because they just kept quiet and they didn't want to offend. It's the old thing about, how Phil Spencer walks in and he does that sale rescue or something like that, where the house isn't selling and Phil Spencer walks in and this is what I did. I just adopted his technique. And he walks in and he says, "So what seems to be going on? What's the seller feedback? What's the buyer feedback? What's going on?" All the rest of it, and speaking to all the buyers individually, and then coming to the conclusion by turning around to the estate agent and going, "Did you not think about telling them that this was a problem?" And then the agent would always say, "I was scared."
Yeah.
It's like, God, you're there to represent them and do the best possible. If they castigate you for telling them the truth, then so be it. But you
Yeah.
have to tell them the truth. But you can deliver it in a certain way,
Of
in a
course,
more
right.
a more appropriate way. I think that's the most important thing. So encourage the total frankness, I would say, in an accurate picture. Ask your estate agent to be honest with you. I think as well, the second one for me is probably ask your agent whether they have any more thoughts on why you didn't find a buyer, and if you only had a few viewings, is there something in the way of people coming to have a look? So is there something actually stopping people coming to have a
Yeah.
look?
Is there an
Is there a
obstacle in the way?
barrier?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
often I see this is a classic example with the QR codes. QR codes are put on for sale boards, and everybody
Yeah.
goes, "Yeah, they've got QR codes on for sale boards." But if I'm walking along next to a property and I see a QR code and I scan it and it goes to their homepage, I'm not going to stop and navigate their homepage to try and find out their listing, because you've got several hurdles to jump over in order
To
to
get to
actually
it.
find that listing in their properties. If you've got to put a QR code on a board, you better make sure it goes right to the property, because I'm out for a walk to enjoy myself with my friends or my family round about me, or I'm out running. The last thing I want to do is stop and actually spend the next 20 minutes trying to find this listing and then look at it and read it. I just want somebody that's going to tell me and get me to the property as quick as possible. And these are the hurdles that we don't, some estate agents, no, I wouldn't say us, these are the hurdles that some estate agents put in their way of their buyers, their potential buyers, without them actually really knowing it. They don't make it easy for you to get straight to the property listing or find out straight the property details. This is why I do walkthrough videos. This is why we do this.
Yeah.
This is why we talk to people as we're going through. Because at the end of it, with a silent movie, which is the music and the video, it's like, it doesn't tell me anything about what the property is and where it is
It's
and
a lot more
what it'll do
interactive
to me.
and it's a
Just
lot more
tell me the
interactive.
facts.
Yeah.
Tell me what I need to know about the property. Where is everything? Where is it in proximity to all the amenities round about it?
Yeah.
Where is it in proximity to St Andrews? Where is it in proximity to the beach? Where is it in proximity to the cafes and bistros and restaurants? What other great things like open water tidal pools, like walks in the parks I can do because I've got pets?
Yeah.
Is it near a main road because I've got cats that I let out at night? And it's like I'm terrified that they might get. See, these are all the things.
Yeah.
If you keep hidden, you'll get loads and loads of viewers, but you'll not get loads and loads of offers. So your viewers to offers proportion will be extremely low. The offers to viewers percentage, it'll be extremely low. Whereas you really want an offers to viewers percentage is extremely high, which means you're getting really good qualified quality leads and viewers and buyers that are coming through your door rather than just getting every tire kicker in the country.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, but I certainly don't want to waste my seller's time, because everybody's time's precious and you don't get it back once it's gone.
Yeah. Also, another barrier that we've come up against in the past is not being flexible enough with access for viewing times and things, and that's from the buyer as well. And
Yeah.
it's then you have to have that conversation, like, you need to let us in at certain times. You need to put your sale in. We need to put our sale in the place of the viewer, and the fact that they're working or they've got other obligations, so we need to be accommodating to the right times. There's one recently, and I was surprised that. Obviously, it was taking longer to sell, and that was the very reason that was the obstacle.
You'd honestly think some people actually don't want to sell their house at all.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to that, when you say you've got a viewer, but the only time they can view is because they're probably going back to England, they're probably flying back. I've had it before. They can only view this afternoon. Well, I can't do this afternoon. I went, but they're actually going back physically to England.
Yeah.
We've actually briefed them and we've actually qualified them, and I think they're ready to make an offer. No, they'll have to come back another time. Guess what happens to that viewer? Gone. Time kills all deals. Remember that if you're selling your house. The longer it goes on, your notes of interest, if they go on 2 or 3 months, they're no really real notes of interest. It's just the agent maybe wants you to keep you hanging on, thinking you've got activity on your property. But we've got notes of interest. Notes of interest is good as it's good as a chocolate fire guard. Really? Unless it's seriously through a
Brilliant
solicitor or something
operations.
like that. If it's through a solicitor, fair enough. But if it's through the viewer
It's just
themselves or the
by
buyer,
verbal. Yeah.
it's just I just keep them informed. It's not actually a physical, sort of commitment of any sort. It's just like I just keep them informed of if anything changes. But agents jump on that sometimes as a oh, we've got a confirmed lead. It could lead to something. It's not going to lead to anything. Don't kid yourself.
Yeah. What about also, I mean, Jim, if your property's on the market, it's not selling, and there's properties round about that are selling, and that are then changing over to sold, and you're still sitting. I mean, you should really be looking at them and thinking,
You do get that. You do get that
yeah,
often. I know what you're saying, Richard. Here, I know what you're getting at. But it's you see me laughing, but I have had this before where somebody says, "How's my property no selling?" And that one round the corner is. I goes,
yeah,
"Well, your property is on at 450,000, and one round the corner is on at 150,000. So
you need
that's
to
why
look at
that's
them.
sold. It's like it's a completely different price point. Your audience is a completely different audience, and it's unlikely that you're going to have more buyers than that £150,000 one round the corner will.
Yeah, and
Does
I
that
think
make
it's
sense?
yeah, and then you really need to, like, if you're sitting with your agent, you really need to look at, like you say, the price point first and foremost. I think obviously if they're vastly different, but then if they're similar, then you need to look at the different qualities, and then
Mm.
if they have if there's different marketing strategies, you need to match things up, and look at the listing, and does it fall short?
Yeah.
And if it does, then that's when the frank conversations come into play, and you
This
could
is
have that with your
why
agent.
this is why when you've been on the market for a while, it's good to actually review what's actually on the market competing with you now,
Yeah.
because the market might have changed, and it has in the last year. Clearly, we know that we're now into a rather than extreme sellers market, we're now in just a sellers market. I mean, there's an extreme, there's a hot sellers market, and then there's a sellers market. So we've jumped two times,
Yeah.
downwards in that chain, and we're just on the border of going to a balanced market overall between buyers and sellers. So you have to take that into account, and that's why it's important, because again, as I say, 20 people make a decision every single day in Fife to put their house in the market. So you will be competing against newer properties come onto the market, and they might be at different price points, and they might be at more attractive price points because of current market conditions. So the strategy that your agent was using maybe 6 months ago, maybe even a year ago, if you're still here, because some people aren't, they're quite happy to wait a year. In Spain,
Yeah.
apparently, they wait 2 years on average to sell.
That's long.
But the key here is you have to check. So it's all about just doing that homework again in the market appraisal, like we do in the beginning, is we check all the existing properties have actually recently sold and come on the land register. It could be similar to yours, and just double check if that price point's still accurate in terms of what they are. Because remember, there's new buyers coming into the market every single day. Again, 17 people make a decision in Fife every single day to buy a property in Fife. So there's that, and that's a fact as well. So that's the things that you've got to think about, and your agent has to do that. So does yours match up, or does it fall short of the current market conditions and what everybody else is offering for it? Once you've got all these comments, once you've got all the comments you can handle, make some notes so you don't actually forget, and then take a couple of days to absorb everything you've heard. Don't make knee-jerk reactions. It's like,
No.
oh, well, that's it. It now falls into my because we all go in with preconceived ideas when we go into a conversation, don't we?
Yeah.
So everything it falls in line for that preconceived idea you hear, and everything it doesn't fall in line you tend not to hear. So all you're looking to do is reinforce what you believe already is happening when you go into your estate agent, because it is a difficult time. It's sometimes a challenging conversation, because it's like, why did it not go according to plan? Why is my house still sitting in the market? This is
Yeah.
what you've got to understand. So this is why, as a seller, you've just got to take notes, take it all down, leave yourself a couple of days to digest it. And then, because your mind will work through it and work towards it. And then you'll look at your notes again. And then you can go back to your agent and then start to say that, it's maybe then time to take some action at that point in time and not make that a knee jerk reaction. 2 days isn't going to make a difference. So
Yeah. I
taking 2
think
days out to have a think about it will make a fundamental difference. Because if it leads to you falling out with your agent because you make that knee jerk reaction, that's not the thing to do, especially possibly you might have people that are hanging in there, maybe to sell their house before they can offer on your house, and you've just frustrated the whole thing. And it's almost like, Is it really equivalent to throwing your toys out the pram, maybe?
And I think it's the same with everything, because it's like any decision, an important decision like that, or get all the information, have all the facts, and sleep on it, and then think, and then, you know, because you've always got a different perspective on things when you look at things the day after.
Need to take a leaf out of my own book to do that.
Or a couple of days later. Yeah.
Sleep on it.
Yeah, I know. But it's important to do that.
I learned that from years and years ago. I remember going to Taggart's garage, and I was about to make an impulse buy because I wanted a new car, and I thought, yeah, that'll do, because it'll get me A to B. I'll do it. And then I thought, and he pitched me, and he was a great salesman, the guy that was doing it at the time. Oh, it's diesel, it's going to last longer. And then I thought, whoa, wait a minute, Jim. You know what happens with impulse buys? You end up buying something the next day or the next week. You think, I didn't really need that. So that's what I did. I've now learned just to go, no, I can't make a decision just now. I'll just wait a couple of days, let it absorb in, and then I will definitely make a decision. And then more often than not, I realise, you know, it was a knee-jerk reaction, impulse, and the right decision is now this decision. Yeah.
Yeah.
So restyling, rearranging, and redecorating. Should you go about and do this, Richard? You know, should anybody just like, oh, that's what... there's assumptions. There's a lot of assumptions made because they immediately look at the feedback. It falls in line with what they're thinking. And everybody goes, maybe you should redecorate and redesign your whole house and change your kitchen and change your bathroom. Is that right tact? Is that the right tact?
No, not always. And I think to jump in and just think, right, I'm going to plow loads of money into it, that is not the answer. If you are relaunching your home and it's been on the market for a wee while, maybe a fresh look and that new feel will help catch people's eye.
Mm-hmm.
And that might be including buyers who have otherwise scrolled past maybe a few times on the online listing because they've seen your listing before and it looks the same and it's been there that long. But it could even be just things like you said, Jim, giving it a good clean because it smells like the dogs. Do you know?
Yeah.
So it could be the right thing. It could be the right action. And that's the conversation you have to have with your agent between you. What is the right things you should be doing? I mean, sometimes it might involve injecting a wee bit of trend and style by purchasing like certain items. And you could get stuff in sales and things that maybe bring a wee bit of colour, maybe a wee bit of new life into certain rooms. Or simply swap things around, do you know, like soft furnishings and things, change things a bit, whether that's cushions and throws and your bedding, and just switch things up and change that look a bit if you're going to be relaunching.
I'm amazed at the amount of times that just putting a throw over a couch has had better days. Yeah. You know, your couch has had better days and it doesn't look the greatest. You've maybe got young kids and they've been thrown up on the couch all the time. So it's like, oh God. But you managed to clean it, but it's still stained. And it is clean. But it just doesn't give the right impression. So sticking a throw over your couch is a great idea, and it's very minimal cost overall than actually going out and having to buy a new suite. If you're going to change your suite anyway, this is the advice here. If you're going to change your suite when you buy your new house, just do it now. If it works for your existing house, because it just makes a huge amount of, but I'll have to carry it off to the next house. But you'll get your house sold. So why would you know? You've got an opportunity. You're going to buy it anyway, so you may as well just buy it a wee bit earlier.
I'm just laughing because anybody outside Fife or maybe even Scotland, oh God, because we do slip into our slang sometimes when we're talking in this. But even like you say, even a throw, soft furnishings and things, or even if you do maybe need to put a wee bit of pizzazz in with just a lick of paint, it's amazing what a lick of paint could do to a room. It hides all those scuffs and things that, you know, from just living in a property, brightens up a dark room, and maybe even add a striking feature wall, or just maybe freshen up doors and your skirting boards and your door frames and things. They could look really tired over time, especially in a busy family home. So a quick cover of paint there could make all the difference.
I had that same conversation with someone in Cellardyke at Roger Street. Yeah, I went out to see a 5-bedroom townhouse. And and they were thinking about, should we actually change anything? Should we change this? Should we change? No. Says that's all. There's the rooms to paint. That's all, because they've got scuff marks and everything like that, just to freshen it up. Somebody wants to walk in, change that carpet in the lower sitting room, open plan to the kitchen. I says put line on the kitchen rather than the tiles. Just stick it straight on top of the tiles. Tiles are flat enough; they're fine. Same with the bathroom as well. Bathroom was really nice, and it had a WC downstairs. It had a bathroom on the middle floor, and the top floor had a bathroom as well. So it ticks all the right boxes for all the right reasons. There were a couple of panes which were blown were identified. They did have so they can bring them out themselves and just take the pane out and actually measure it and get a pane custom built and then put it back in with the parting and then put the wee slots back in to keep it in. Can't remember what they're called. I was having that difficult yesterday. It came to my head just like that, what they were called. It'll probably come back. So halfway through the rest of the show, I'll probably go, oh, it's so and so, and you'll go, what? It's like, aye, your memory is like, I always think my dad always told me, your memory is like a tape recorder. You know, it's like it's further on, and then what it does, it rewinds all the way back, and then all of a sudden, out the blue, you come up with it. Oh, I remember that, maybe from 3 days ago, and effectively that's what it's like. It's just like it goes back.
I used to stress about things like, oh, what was that? I can't remember it. And see now, I'm like, just forget it. I'll come back to you.
I forget. I'll come back to you. Yeah.
Another thing is furnishings, and maybe just moving furnishings around, and changing sight lines in properties. Whether if you've got a really nice feature fireplace, you want the eye to be drawn to that, or if you've got a big picture window, you want your eye to be drawn to that. I've got one coming up in Cellar Dyke, and you walk in the front door. There's 2 doors at the side and one at the front. But you walk in the door that they use, and the picture window, it just pictures, and it's sea, and it's got the May aisle. But when you walk in, you've got the back of the couch or the sofa, should I say?
Yeah.
And it really should be the other way around, so you've got that clear view right out to the picture window. Things like that. So think about sight lines. Think about making a room feel bigger. It just changes the entire atmosphere of a property. If you've got a fire lit and your eyes drawn straight to that, and it's that certain time of year, and just to create that extra space, and removing excess pieces that stop it looking cluttered, and just simple things like that. And if you've got an agent that knows what they're talking about, they'll advise you that, like, just put these things away, move that furniture, because we want this to be what they're looking at, and this is where their eyes to be drawn. So they're all tactics and strategy that should be discussed with your agent.
I mean, probably the great way to make changes that work is to ask, a friend for a candid response, or a relative to wander around and make suggestions for improvements. But your estate agent should be able to tell you that quite easily and understand that. I understand that not all estate agents understand that, because their motives are obviously different. But we'll not go into that. So a fresh pair of eyes will notice things that you miss, or you've really just got used to because it's been comfortable that's been in that position. You've maybe got the dog bed sitting in the corner, and the first thing you see as you come in the door. So immediately somebody it's maybe got allergies or anything like that would like
put them off. Yeah.
Tighten up. They just go, it's like, oh, I've got allergies to dogs. So that immediately gets them tense. Therefore, the rest of the conversation, the rest of the viewing doesn't go according to plan for that very reason.
Yeah, and it's not. There's nothing wrong with the fact that people do become just so complacent to how their own place is, because they live in it, and that's fine.
Yeah. They
just need somebody else to advise them. Right, okay, this is what we have to do in order to get the property sold, and that's ultimately the goal. So yeah, you're totally right.
So
the next thing.
This is a controversial one, eh?
I was just going to say, Jim, you're going to tell us about the controversial thing, because we're going to go on to deciding whether it's time to switch agents. So I was going to say, run us through that then, Jim, because this is the controversial one.
Ideally, I usually say to most people is, I don't think you really need to switch an agent, because I think most agents actually know what they're doing. You only really switch an agent if you've lost complete faith in them, and they're not coming up with any coherent strategy about what should be done next. And all their one trick pony is like Nigel Lawson when he stood up with Margaret Thatcher and said, "You've only left me with one club in a bag of golf clubs to do this, and it's base rates for curbing, for tackling inflation." Funny, nobody's done that today with Rishi Sunak. It's just like you've just left us with base rates, but they do other things. And literally that's what it is. It's just reduce the price. A lot of people just keep talking about, I think we should reduce the price. If you want more activity, we should just reduce the price. And I'm like, well, that's maybe not the real reason behind this. Let's take a look at the video and what message that sends. I looked at ones recently from a very upmarket estate agent, and when I watched the video, I thought it was like a funeral march. The music, it was happening in the background. It was terrible. And it's like they thought they even thought that themselves, but it's like they went with them because they have a prestigious
The
brand,
reputation.
and
Yeah.
that's why they did it. And then they realised it's like, you know, we should have gone with you in the first place, but we didn't know about you at the time. It's only my brother. It actually then pointed out, it's like, Jim will turn this around, no bother, in a short space of time. And I knew straight away when I looked at the current listing, it's like what was all going wrong, what was all going right, and what was all going wrong. So I've given them advice and all the rest of it, and left it with them. But they would probably, my best advice is typically sometimes it's like, if you want to get your house sold, and just take the advice, and then give it to the estate agent, tell them what they need to do, and hopefully they'll do these changes and your house should sell. I've done
Yeah.
that before plenty of times, and people have actually come back to me and said, but why would you
What did you get out of that?
what are you getting out of this? I went, well, nothing really. I'm just getting the satisfaction. I know your house is going to sell and you're going to get on with your journey. That's what I'm getting out of it.
Yeah, I mean, because you could have
And
probably,
for a lot of people, that they don't compute with that, because that is not your typical estate agent mentality, is it?
yeah.
It's the
And
estate agents. Estate agent. This is what I learned. First of all, Richard, sorry to interrupt. This
no,
is
you're
what I
right.
learned in the very beginning. I became an estate agent with Century 21, the American, the conglomerate, huge,
Yeah.
145,000 people working Century 21. This is what they told me. In the UK, estate agents are literally the fourth least respected profession. In America, estate agents are the fourth most admired profession.
Oh
What does
yeah, they've
that
quite
tell you about what we do and what they do? Hence the
yeah.
reason why I was trained in America from Americans, and we still get our training from the Australian market even as
Australia,
well, because they have a different approach and different mentality to how estate agency is done, but also
it's quite a
compassion.
glamorous career
Yeah,
in the US and
compassion.
Australia. Yeah,
Compassion, I think, is the most important thing. And it's about getting someone from the journey from where they want to be to where they want to go in the most time efficient and effective manner and stress-free manner, with the least possible disruption, but the best possible return that they'll get for their price. And that's what it should be, because then the money is a byproduct of what you do well. Whereas the mentality of other estate agents, I know that because I know what they're like, and we've had them before, and that's why they're no longer with us, is let's get the money first, and then
yeah,
we'll talk about what we need to do for you after that. And it's like, really? That's not the
yeah.
approach that you should be taking. It should be helping somebody manage their life as it happens, because it's very stressful. They've never sold a house before. So this is why we talk about, it's worth digging a little deeper if you have to go to another estate agent. You've got to think about things like, is your agent's service and communication, so how's it so far, and how did they make you feel? Do they actually still make you feel valued and informed, or ignored and in the dark? Ask for their ideas for new campaigns for 2024. What can you do? See how much energy and enthusiasm they still have, and how credible you find their advice. This is where you'll find out if they're a volume estate agent, because volume estate agents basically work on the principle that we'll bust as much in the door as possible, and
Yeah.
80% of that stock will sell, and the other 20%, we're no bothered if they leave. We're not really focused on them anymore. We just want more
Mhm.
new listings, because boards breed boards. That's
Yeah,
what their mentality is. All they want is exposure and boards. More boards up makes everybody think that they're the ones they should be selling with. And that's the mentality. That's a corporate estate agent. That's
yeah,
one of the corporate estate agents. Well, that's what they teach. The green and white one, if anybody knows that one, they teach that all the time. I don't want to name them, obviously, but the green and white one teaches that all the time. And the yellow and white, the orange and white one actually, is actually from that same mentality. They were actually trained with these same people. And most of these estate agencies are all trained by the same people. They've all come from the same corporate culture as boards breed boards, and that sort of, let's think about the money first and what I'm going to get out of this before I actually deliver any service for you. Whereas I'm like, no, let's deliver the service, and the money's a byproduct of what we do well. So
yeah.
it's a different mentality. There's a few out there, are really good, and I really admire them, but it's very few, because they have the same principles and ethics and beliefs that I have, but not quite a few of them, I would say.
I know it's really like volume as opposed to quality, and it's interesting when you say that, Jim. You told the story about meeting with these people that were already on with quite a reputable agent, and you could have easily walked in there and taken that list and says, "Look, I'll do this for you." But as you said, you've seen a lot of good things, and you've seen the things that were going wrong. And rather than have the client go through all that turmoil and change an agent, you advise them on what needs to change, and the likelihood is they probably went back to their agent and says, "This is what we need to do." And that's the difference between agents, between like an agent like yourself and another agent that would have walked in and just said, "I'm going to get this listing."
Yeah. Who do you think they're going to talk about the next time that somebody says, "I'm thinking about putting my house on the market"?
Or if they go to sell again,
they're not going to go to the existing one that sold my house. They're going to go to so and so because they're the ones that actually sold my house for me, but the other ones didn't actually sell it. It may look like they sold it, but they didn't. It was this other agent that actually told me what to do in order to sell it. So if you feel like you've run out of steam, I think the last one for me is at the start of the year is a perfect time to switch to someone new. Perhaps your original second choice, or to the agent you haven't really spoken to yet. It's probably there. Now, we did a show on this maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago about changing estate agents, and it doesn't really need to be a hassle, and how you can do it. And it is in the link in this post for that show itself. Or you can listen to the podcast, or you could just read the article for quick advice in doing it. The articles are usually about 4 minutes long.
Yeah.
Final one for me, I think, is maybe time to refresh your marketing approach. What's your thoughts on it?
Yeah. So, like you say, Jim, there is a lot of different approaches that people take. But I think looking at whether you're staying with the original agent or going with someone new, your home stands the best chance of selling when its marketing looks completely fresh, both online and offline. And I think it's important to think about the video aspect and the social media aspect, and like that whole side of things. If you've not got professional photography, make sure that the agent's got a professional photographer in there and got really good pictures taken to show off your style, or maybe even your newly styled rooms, and make sure that they mix up from wide angles and close up and detail shots and highlight standout features. Like I said, when we're talking about feature fireplaces, if you've got a big roaring fireplace in a property and things, then it should be in there. And capitalize on things like the view, if there's a really nice view for the property, and especially sea views if we're in like places like the East Nuke and things as well. Yeah. And look through your property descriptions and what's actually said in that. I mean, that should all be done at the very beginning, but if it's not done correctly, then it needs to be reviewed, and see that it captures the true essence of your home. And pay particular attention to that lead-in paragraph. We spoke about that a lot of times, Jim, and even the first two lines of that as well. And even maybe start with bold certain words about, obviously, maybe if you're at the Fife Coastal Path, if you're at certain places, these are the things that should be jumping out to people in the first line, if not the first two lines of your description.
Definitely. I mean, even explore a new pricing strategy, whether it's up or down. I mean, it's obviously going to be down. I mean, you'd be pretty foolish to then say, "Well, I tell you what, we'll put a price up and see if we can get more." It's like, no. You realign. You don't reduce. You realign. And I know for people, it's the difference between somebody saying you failed, but I say I just didn't pass.
Mm-hmm.
There's a subtle difference there in psychology. You failed at doing it, but I just didn't pass, or I found a way it didn't work. See, Einstein did that 1,000 times with a light bulb. I found it 1,000 times and the light bulb didn't work, and then I found the one that did work. There's a subtle difference in that mindset and thinking. So it could be just the fact that new pricing strategy could make a fundamental difference. Again, we've done it recently. We're realigned, and they were like, "Oh no, we don't really." It's like, but we're gonna get this. And they took about 2 weeks to actually to buy into what we were telling them. Sold in a week. It's like offer received, sold. Person's in a position. They're a cash buyer. They've maybe got a wee small mortgage to get. We just got ratification, and they've got a decision in principle on that small mortgage. Everything's done. They've got nothing to sell after that. The job is done. The solicitors confirmed everything, and literally it is now sold because they took our advice on what we should be doing. Now, for some people out there, I will say, you might not be listening to your estate agent. That maybe is the prime reason here. You might have this impression about how you think the world works or what you think your property is like. And you maybe just are refusing to believe that the fact that what your estate agent's saying to you right now is actually what's actually happening, because it's not similar to you. Now, I'll give you an example. There's 4 different ways that people respond. 4 different ways: sight, sound, smell, touch. Okay? That's the 4.
Yeah.
And there's the audience that you're in right now is more than likely, because everybody has one, it's more prominent than the other. The audience that your paradigm works in, and the fact that what's wrong with my house? There's nothing wrong, because you're in 25%. You don't understand the other 75% with your listing and what they see. That's the key. You just think about the 25% and you extrapolate that and actually think that's what the 100% thinks or how they should think. The other 75% don't think like you at all, because their sense, their dominant sense, is one of the other 3. And that's the key here. Once you understand your agent is on your side and they're giving you the best advice, then it will be a time thing. It won't be, why is my house no selling in 3 weeks? It should have always sold in 3 weeks, because everybody down the pub and everybody next door to me and all my friends and family told me it should sell in 3 weeks. And my response to that is, what experience do they have in a estate agency?
Yeah.
Probably 0. Oh, your competitor estate agent told me it should have sold in 3 weeks. What do you think their real motive is for telling you that? Maybe to get your
Yeah.
listing? Maybe to get your board? They're not really bothered about whether your house is going to sell or not. They just want your listing so they can get more listings off it. I say it how it is. It makes no difference to me. It makes no difference to my income. Nothing like that at all. Makes no difference to my future financially. It's just the truth. Some people will believe this, and some people will just go, nah, it can't be right. But it is. It's just that fact. It's just the fact that you might have to wait a bit longer than other people because there is something else putting them off. A classic is the one I always remember. This is one I always remember when I go back to, is it Main Street in Upper Largo? No, it's no Upper Largo. It's on the way. You know, as you go past in the dip in the corner, when we put
I was
on,
going to say South Hughes, but that's
12 and 14 Largo Road. 12 to 14 Largo Road, which is the dip. About 5 other estate agents had this on. And you know, at some point in time, I think they relented to the fact that we've only got Fife Properties as a last resort choice.
Oh, I remember which one you're talking about now.
They maybe just didn't like me. Why would that be? I'm a Marmite person. You either love me or you hate me. But that's okay. I can live with that. I got broad shoulders. But in the dip, so all these other agents had this on. I knew the reservation was the amount of traffic coming back and forward to this. So I had to start off and I had to start a marketing campaign on the principle that, you know, the traffic really isn't that encumbrant. So you had to do things at different times of day in order to let people see that in the marketing strategy and the digital strategy. You couldn't just show people, you know, if somebody sees, you know, a huge amount of, because now and again at certain times of day, yeah, we have buses and you'll have lorries. It's only route along the East Coast, along to the East Nuke. So you've got all these people coming along at that point in time in that dip. So it will happen. But when you walk into the house, you don't hear any of that. When you're down in the lower garden,
really nice it was really nice out the back as well.
When you're down in the lower garden next to the river, you can't hear anything from up there. And that's where you're going to spend most of your time. So you're going to spend most of your time in the house. You're going to spend most of your time out the back garden, and you've got your other side of the house to the road. So you're going to spend most of your time there as well. So you're not going to be near the road at any point in time. So the marketing strategy there was, you're never going to hear anything. Even though you're next to the main road, you're driving in off the road into your own private drive. You've got about 3 or 4 cars you can park in there. So how on earth is it ever going to disrupt you, the fact that all these people are passing your window in their cars? They're never going to see you. And lo and behold, sold. Janet took a bit of convincing for that strategy, I must admit. And then we realigned as well. And then we pushed it back up to more than what everybody had it on in the first place.
It's funny because the
We
price
got more money
realignment.
for it. We got more money for it than what everybody else had it on in the first place. I
Yeah,
worked that
the
one out.
price realignment.
But that's
The
good
price
negotiation.
realignment thing with people is that they're in that mindset. If we're realigning the price, they're going to have to then accept less for it, and that's not what the aim of that is. And there's a correct way of doing it, and like you say, into the correct price brackets so that it's visible then to a different demographic of people or different people that are looking at a different level on the websites and things as well. So price realignment isn't about accepting less for your property.
No, it's definitely not. It's just another strategy. It's another strategy. It also triggers off all the new listings. So you actually get new audiences actually introduced to your property. And these new audiences, we know for a fact, and it's a rule of thumb. Every estate agent should know this. Maybe some of the newer estate agents don't, or maybe some of them have forgot. But we know by a rule of thumb that most people have 10% more in their budget than they actually think they do when they tell you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a rule of thumb, and it's always worked with me. And the fact that if somebody comes along and says my budget's probably up to 300,000, it's like, no, you've probably got 330,000. You've got approval for a lot more than likely. Now, nowadays, a lot of people, are actually quite open with us because we're quite sincere about our approach, because it's not about fleecing somebody for as much money as possible on behalf of our seller. It's about getting a win-win situation where both parties work. But predominantly, the seller walks away with a real win that they wanted, possibly more than what the win they wanted in the first place. And that doesn't need to be money. That could be the circumstances driving behind it. Like it could be a quick exit. It could be something else in the background that's happening in their life and they need resolved for this just to go away in order for them to concentrate on that. That is about helping people manage life as it happens.
It
That
could
is
even
not
be
about selling a house.
it could even be the fact that you've matched two people together who both require an extended time. So maybe they're not ready to move, they need a wee bit longer, and the person that's obviously buying needs a wee bit longer as well. You've put them together, they're both happy that they've got that extra bit of time to move.
Yeah, that's what happened with University Avenue. University Avenue was, we need our house is getting built and completed in a year from now. When should we put our house on the market? And I went, now. Sorry, now? It's 12 months away. It's like, we'll be selling our house and moving within 2 or 3. No, you won't be. I will get somebody to fall into your circumstance. This was because Andrew's circumstances was he needed a specially adapted house. So there was no way he was ever able to move to rented accommodation if he got the offer and he couldn't refuse. So I quite openly said that I will get him the buyer that he needs to accommodate all his wishes. There's no way I'm having you moving into rented accommodation, Andrew, because you will not cope because of this. This house is specially adapted for you. You need your new house as to be the next house you move into. So that's why I deliberately targeted people who would be able to help us accommodate that entry date of 12 months. And after 2 weeks or 2 weeks, 3 weeks, we managed to find that person out there. It agreed to 12 months. But more importantly, if you agree to 12 months, it's like, the 11th hour comes along at the 11th month and I go, oh, I've changed my mind. Market changes. So I said, no. It's got to be 12 months. It's got to be concluded missives, but it's also got to be a 10 grand non-refundable deposit. That has to be, or this is not happening. And they agreed. More importantly, though, I managed to add another 100,000 onto that price.
That's a good result.
Yeah, that is an excellent result. That is an excellent result. It was originally 250,000, by the way.
Really?
And I got 350,000 more, 100,000 more. I got the 12-month entry date, I got the non-refundable deposit, and I got the concluding missives. Now, that's not going to happen anytime, but I believe it just demonstrates skill. Negotiation skill is key here. Digital marketing is essential today. You have to have someone that has the proper digital marketing strategy and retargeting strategy. The next one is definitely you then have to have a really good negotiator. And I always go back to saying, how is it possible for me to buy 20 properties in lockdown you know, in the boom market, 20 properties for my portfolio, and the majority of them were at home report or less. That tells me straight away that whoever was dealing with me at the other end of the phone was I hate to say, a piss poor negotiator. You know, there must have been. Honestly, Richard, I couldn't help saying that, because it's like, I really feel for the people they got to sell their property, and the fact that, you know, the fact that you could have got more money out of me, to be honest. I would have paid more for these properties, because all the numbers work for me. But the skill I used, because I'm a great negotiator of what I do, and I've honed and developed that skill over the last 30 years in industry, and also in my buy-to-let business, my investment business, and also my stage business and letting business. I've honed and developed over the years and read thousands of books on this topic and other topics to do with strategy. And that's why I've managed to get to that level and be able to do that. And they just don't see it coming. I even taught my daughter to do it when an agent had said, there's no way you're going to get any more money out of this. You're not going to get anything off. The customer's going to go to budge.
They're not going to budge.
Yeah, and by the time we got to Monday, they'd knocked 10 grand off it. And this was my daughter. She's 20-year-old at that time, or something.
That just demonstrates
20-year-old lassie running circles, running rings round this, an experienced estate agent, apparently, running rings round them. What does that say? It's all about understanding what people's needs are, delivering that, and making sure it actually happens. You can, and I'm going to final thoughts on this. You can either watch it happen, you could make it happen, or for most people, they wonder what the heck just happened.
Yeah. I'll come to the other side of it and I'm like, what just happened there? How did that
happen?
Yeah.
Imagine, look at Bonnygate. Look at Bonnygate. How on earth did I manage to get that for £45,500 when it was on with the stage and in the boom market at £60,000?
I know, and it's a brilliant wee flat.
God, it's a cash cow. It earns all the time. It's fully occupied. Their turn is astronomical. And the actual value added to it, I've spent 10 or 12 grand on it, and it's 90 to 100,000 now.
Yeah.
And that was in the boom time. How is that possible? I could get that off a Cooper estate agent. They had no idea it was coming. By the time the deal was done, they were just told, by the way, I'm selling my house to Jim for £45,500. They must have been. I would be embarrassed if somebody came to me and said that. I would have just thrown myself on my sword as an estate agent, left the profession completely for that. I wouldn't be able to live with that, and the fact that I allowed that to happen to a customer. That's mental. That would be the time for me to retire.
Yeah.
Anyway, on that cheery note, it's time to finish off.
Yeah, but I think the most important thing for me, obviously, and what we've discussed about today is, if you're at that stage and you're thinking, my property's not selling, I need to relaunch, I need to rethink, take a wee bit of time, sit down with your agent, speak about these things that we spoke about today. And if you're not getting the right answers, or they're not being transparent and frank with you about things, and have a proper strategy in place, then I think maybe you need to consider changing agents.
Yeah, I wouldn't. Don't do too hastily, though. I would say to most people, don't do too hastily. Remember, you've got to understand the stage. Most estate agents do have your genuine best interests at heart. You've got to understand that they based on what they know. I think it's all to do with based on what they know, isn't it? Really, and sometimes they don't know what they don't know, so they don't know what to advise you next and how to do it. But the key here is, if the right advice is there, it really is down to a waiting game. And it just so happens your buyer isn't in the market at that point in time. And equally, the flip side of that is, sometimes you get a quick offer and you go, oh, it's only the first offer, maybe I should wait for the next one. It's like, whoa, wait a minute, it's not how long you've been in the market, it's how long the buyer's been in the market. They've been looking for 2 years. This is the property they want, so that's why they made an offer straight off the bat. It's probably an offer you can't refuse. So deal or no deal, you've got nobody else on the table. You open the box and say, oh, I don't want that. It's like, and then take the risk that somebody else is going to come along, somebody else is no here, and is going to come along and accept and make another offer of that similar caliber. Probably not. It's very rare. And on that note, let's finish off, because I could talk for hours on this. If you're looking to relaunch and move this year, the key here is we'd love to show you how you can make a difference in your home sold and make a new start, a new fresh approach to this. And final thoughts for you before we finish off, Richard.
Yeah, I think just to speak to your agent, and like you say, they do have that conversation with them and see if you could devise a plan between yourselves to be able to move forward in a positive way.
Yeah, absolutely. And Laura, we have not forgotten about you. I see your message there, and I will speak to the team. Okay, that's us. Thank you very much for tuning in. If you're listening or you're tuning in the podcast, leave us a wee comment or share it with someone else. Tag someone else in. It might need this information. Someone that's going on to you right now and saying it's just not happening how I expected it to happen. Well, tag them into this anyway. Show them it. Share it with them, and it gives them some food for thought at least about what maybe they should be doing or how they should be approaching it, or what they should be doing for their existing stage and how they should be approaching them as well. Until next time, guys, have a fantastic afternoon, a fantastic weekend as well. And that's been us for Fife Properties TV. Bye-bye for now.